Everyone is creative.
A creative life requires
bravery and action,
honesty and hard work.
We're here to support and celebrate.
And encourage you to make the things that you love.
We believe in the power of community.
We believe in giving a damn.
We believe in face-to-face connections,
in learning from others,
in hugs,
and high fives.
We bring together people who are driven by passion and purpose,
confident they will inspire one another,
and inspire change in neighborhoods and cities around the world.
Everyone.
Everyone
is welcome.
Okay, so this month is the global theme is Parallel, which is chosen by the Kuala Lumpur chapter in Malaysia and illustrated by Ollie. I'm going to just say a little of the description of this month's theme. So like train tracks receding into the distance, our lives eventually reach the end of the line. And for a large part of our journey, most people tend to live parallel lives. We go to school, hang out with friends, get jobs, and take care of our families. Just look out the window at the home or office across the street. We exist side by side with strangers, always keeping the same distance of anonymity between us, even though we have so much in common. All of us are trying to build a better life for ourselves and our loved ones. Of course, we are not carbon copies. The differences make our lives our own. Her black coffee, his energy, their chamomile tea. So we may have never seen eye to eye. And after all, mathematics prove that parallel lines never meet. So there you go. Okay, so today we have Jonina Kirton. We already read Jonina's bio, but did you know that she worked as a psychic on Canada's first psychic call line? Or is this something that maybe this generation don't know, that existed? We had phones that actually you dialed to speak to people and you can reach a psychic. True story. So she also is a super fan of water. We share that. And you know, her friends used to call her the fish. And she also wasn't poetry her first thing, right? She came into it later in life. She had multiple careers. She worked in a bank, for an airline, and she was an enforcement officer. Who knows? I don't see you you're so cute and lovely. So like, no, enforcing nothing. Anyway, only love, I guess. Okay, so let's just give a warm round of applause to Jonina.
She's fun. I am so happy to be here with you all. And thank you to Creative Mornings and to, was it Rob? Thank you so much for sponsoring this event. And to the Vancouver Art Gallery and to my girl, Sophia. We've been doing a few things together lately, and it's really, really fun. We're kind of bringing our story on the road, and at some point we hope to write a book together about our lives. It's been amazing to be part of her life. I needed a daughter. I have a son, and I had a nephew that we also adopted, and I have 3 brothers and a grandson, and like, oh my God, we were so in need of a girl. So my niece is 50, there's 50 years between me and my niece, so we really needed more girls in our family. So thank you everyone for being here. Wow, where to begin? I think I'd like us all to take like a couple of breaths together. How would that be? And even maybe give yourself a shake. Just kind of allow, if you need to, close your eyes, take a few breaths, and just really connect with your body. You know, we rush to places, we rush to things, we come together, and it's lovely to see each other and the high fives and hugs. But sometimes we need to just come back into our body, be with ourselves, to really listen when someone is speaking. And this is something that we learn in Circle, the value of really, really listening when someone is speaking. And hopefully what I have to say will be easy enough to follow. This was not an easy topic to write about for a poet. Oh dear. I'm going to warn you, I took a bit of poetic license, but I was quite happy to hear you already talking about that side by side. I did not know that that would be part of the opening, and that was what I was thinking of, was how we live side by side. And yet we're right beside each other, but we know not much about each other, and I think about that particularly being a mixed blood. So my memory's not good these days. So I wrote everything down just in case I need to read it. So I may refer to my notes, and I may need the prompts from them. So I really struggled with the meaning. I looked up the meaning. You know, being a poet, I love words. I love unpacking words. I looked up to all the meanings. I tried the scientific stuff, and I got a headache. I kept seeing these parallel lines, and I really don't do straight lines, and so it was really, really starting to bother me, and so I prayed. I was like asking for some help and some guidance from that parallel world. And so I finally started to realize that I needed to just let go of the idea of looking up what the word meant and the scientific meaning, and just let myself do whatever came to me. So I just wasn't comfortable with the notion of the straight lines, but I am comfortable with the notion of parallel universes. Since I was a young child, I remember thinking that there were other worlds and that I could have access to them. And I remember feeling like someone was with me in the forest, and now I believe that would be my ancestors. So that was very, very easy for me to enter into it that way. But as I was praying, I also kept hearing that time collapses, and then that sort of struggled with that because my husband's a bit of a scientist, and he said that's not quite right. Yeah. So I don't know. That's what I heard, time collapsing. So in the way for me, it was like thinking about writing about the past. So when I'm writing, I really go into the body to try to access that memory that more than my mind remembers, my blood memory, my cellular memory. So I try to go into that. And in a sense, time does collapse when you do that. It's as if you're here, there, and like you're in more than one place, if you can really enter that space. Got to keep track. So, given my wonky way of going about things, I'm going to ask you to soften your gaze. So, if you're a scientist out there, no, I'm not coming with the science. So, if you could just take the poetic view of softening your gaze around the idea of parallel universes and so on. So, I began life in 1955. That's my mother, my father, and I. So I really grew up in parallel worlds because my mother was Icelandic Irish and my father was Métis. Both of his parents were Métis, Red River Métis from Manitoba. And the worldviews are so vastly different between these two people. My Icelandic family grew up poor, was obsessed with becoming wealthy and having prestige and status, and got that. So I had the blonde, blue-eyed people, tall, with money. And then I had the Métis, short, no, not all of them, but a lot of them, not so tall, and various shades of brown. And there's a very, very different way of thinking about the world. Like money was not the priority, relationships were the priority. So I'm stuck between these two worlds. And for a time, that did not feel so good, I have to tell you. For a time, I felt like I don't know which world I belong in. I even had people tell me things like, well, just pick one. You know, it's like, just say you're white. And I'm like, yeah, but everybody always asks me what I am, so I don't think that's going to work. But then at the same time, I was not fully accepted into the Indigenous world at times because I was too white. So there's this place where and I didn't know the culture, so there was that. And my family, to make things more complicated, decided to tell everyone that they were French. So at some point... Yeah, my grandmother, and my father, who very visibly looked Indigenous, claimed to be French. And even though my grandmother grew up with her language, and she grew up speaking that language, and she grew up with the culture, She, at some point, I believe it was when my grandfather died and she had 4 small children, that she decided that she was French. She didn't want her children to be taken, which is a theme throughout some of this talk. Like Zofia ended up in foster care, and many of Indigenous children end up in foster care. So I didn't really understand the meaning of it when people would stop my mom on the street and ask her where she got me. I didn't know for a long time that that was because of the 60s scoop, which started earlier than the 60s. So there was this sense of, where do I belong? And I'm living in these 2 worlds, like which lane do I pick? And it was very hard, and actually feeling like I needed to be a bridge between the 2. So this is a poem that I wrote. It's called Reconciliation. It's been traveling, it's been on TV, it's been all sorts of places. It's called Reconciliation. How will I reconcile myself? The Icelander and the Métis, the settler and the Indigenous, an ally to myself, since birth flung across a chasm. I often wondered, am I to be forever the way across, weak anchors at each end, my spine a flexible deck, load-bearing, and within my cables too much tension, as some try to cross, we all swing wildly in each other's steps, with no safety nets. The waves of emotion threaten us all. And then there are the times that both sides seek to disown, to cut my cords, let me fall to the rushing waters below. Maybe today I will just float away, see where the water takes me, but not today. Today I will rebuild. This time, no quick fixes, no steel cables or wooden planks, no rust, no rot, no nails necessary, but rather the slow growth of twisted roots from ancient trees, the way across made of grandmother and grandfather stones. I will become a self-sustaining structure, gain strength over time, a living root bridge that lasts 500 years. Imagine that, these bridges last 500 years. And so I started to be able to think more of myself as being less of a bridge in the sense of a swing bridge or a concrete bridge, and more in the sense of the blending of the 2 sets of roots, and that's very strong. And apparently those bridges last 500 years, which is incredible. Yeah, the technology. And you've already met my girl, Zofia. This is her and I at the Murdered and Missing Indigenous Women's Walk in 2017. We walked and drummed together. And have any of you been to the Human Rights Museum in Winnipeg? Have you seen the red dress display? It's really powerful, isn't it? And then we've seen the dresses here. So for her and I, for Zofia and I, one of the differences in these parallel worlds that we're living in is that it's more likely that something bad will happen to us. And things have happened, but we won't talk about that right now. So we're in this different world. So that was my mother and I. It was a very different experience. She was, a very, what would you call her? She was the church lady. I don't think a lot of men said or did the things to her that they did to me. And I don't think that she understood that, or maybe she did, and that's why she was so scared. I could feel my parents' fear, and I think it was because they both unarticulated, probably not spoken about, but they both knew that I was more at risk, that there was a problem. I know that my mother put whitening cream on me, for example. She didn't want me to get too dark in the summer. So Zofia and I share that, and when I met her, I'm going to try and read a bit of this here so that I don't forget some details. Well, as you saw, she's an amazing singer-songwriter, and I've gotten to watch her progress with her poetry and then her music and the lyrics that she's writing, and it's just been incredible. And as mentioned, we do intend to write a book together about our parallel experiences, because we have had some that are parallel and some that are very different. For many years now, she's called me her spirit mama, and I really love that. But I also worried about her mom. I didn't want to overtake. I didn't want to make her mother feel displaced in any way, and I'm really, really grateful that her mom has embraced our relationship and that the 3 of us really get on. It's wonderful when we're all at a reading or at an event of hers together, and she So there's my two mums. And we nod at each other. So I really love that. And I'm really grateful that she's been willing to share her daughter with me. So I first met Sophia when she was working at Sweet Cherubim, and my son had been going there, and he was like, you got to meet this girl. She's so pretty. He was kind of taken with her. And so I went to the restaurant with him, and he's like introducing me to her. And I'm sitting after I've ordered my food thinking, she looks like me when I was young. I'm thinking it's so interesting how we choose people sometimes that look like our parents or act like our parents. And I was really struck by that. But I also noticed her vulnerability when I spoke with her at the counter, and I have her permission to tell this part. You know, she shared a lot of details about her life, including the fact that she didn't have a cell phone, that she was couch surfing, and had come from foster care. And I remember thinking to myself, she's so vulnerable. I remember being the vulnerable young woman coming to Vancouver at 31 by myself. My father was very violent, so I didn't really have the backing of a parent, and my mother died young. And so I remember thinking, what would happen if someone just would have taken care of me a little bit, you know, like just took me in? Life could have been quite different. And someone to just be there for her. So I decided that, you know, I was going to be the mother bear, and I was going to just... Little voice kept saying, go ask her for coffee, and little voice and I argue with each other quite a bit, actually. It's very patient with me. And I'm like, well, she'll think I'm, like, who is this person? Who comes up to some stranger and says, we want to go for coffee? But I finally got the courage and asked her, and also researched cell phones, because I thought she has to have a cell phone. And we weren't rich at the time, but it didn't matter. She really needed that safety, and that's why I've put those pictures up there of the walk. I was concerned for her safety. But we also got to do a lot of fun things together. So after we started to get to know each other and get more comfortable, we went to a bunch of plays at the Push Festival. We've been to many readings, and I've been of my readings, her readings, of her performing. We've had this wonderful time of watching each other grow. When we first started talking, I had just begun writing, and oh my God, it was terrible writing, but she was really kind when I read it. She didn't criticize. She's a better writer than I am. So when we get together, it was really hard to leave her sometimes. I love you so much, Sophia. It would be really hard to leave her. I was so afraid, and I really had to, but I had to pray and trust that, you know, she has her own journey. Yes, she has the phone, she can call me, which she has done upon occasion, to share joyful things as well, right? And so I just really have enjoyed knowing her. And lo and behold, we might be related. So I have a great-great-great-grandfather, John Baptiste Boucher, also known as Wakan. He brought Simon Fraser here. He was a Métis voyageur, the guide, interpreter, and so on, who brought Simon Fraser here and went up to Fort St. James, which is where Zophia's people live. And he married a carrier woman up there, so 3-4 generations back, we might be related. We need to get that DNA testing done. So one day I'd like to do that. Anyway, it's been really wonderful to have her in my life. She's very, very special to me. And that notion of being a spirit mama, you know, to being, I mean, you could say in a way spare mama, right? I was a spare mama. The other one that she could turn to when her mother was not available. And it's been wonderful to have that relationship with her. And it's a two-way street. I believe all relationships are a two-way street if we really, really look. We get from even from people we give to, we're getting something, you know. So it's been wonderful to be with her, and she takes really good care of me. She's the one who takes my arm when I'm walking and does little things like that, gets my food. It's amazing when I'm out with her how she cares for me. So thank you, Sophia. And thank you for your beautiful voice. I love you. Yeah. So I've had an interesting life. So this woman in the far right, is Sharon Jinkerson Brass. So she's a Saulteaux elder from the Key Nation in Saskatchewan. So she was a 60 scoop survivor. She's a pipe carrier. She was reunited with her family, and so her grandmother taught her quite a bit. So she's an amazing elder. We met a few years back when I was helping to train co-facilitators at Native Health. We did that for PeerNet BC. And so we met there, and we kind of just right away took to each other. And it's been interesting because, again, we might be related. I don't know. Maybe I'm just finding my relatives everywhere. I kind of feel like my ancestors kind of tap me on the shoulder and go, over there, or that one. And I think they conspired to bring Sophia and I together, and definitely Sharon and I as well. So we've sat in circle many times with Sharon. She'll invite us to her home, and some of these ceremonies have been life-changing. One of them was in the downtown east side, and she invited 50 matriarchs, and she gifted us all with a cedar umbilical cord, which is where the Icelandic pictures come from. That's Iceland. That's a black beach in Iceland. An unbelievable place. It's so desolate, like, oh my goodness. You get there, the wind, if you've ever been, the wind is so strong that if you don't hang onto your car door, it's gonna blow off. So I went there thinking I'm gonna do a nice ceremony, and I'm like, oh my God, so cold. So it was a little shorter than I thought. I brought that cedar umbilical cord with me to that beach. So I had been bringing that around with me. It's a cedar umbilical cord. It's made by the young women, Indigenous women in the downtown east side, with medicines, and I would bring it with me everywhere when I go to read. I bring it sort of for comfort, and to also to remember the other women that were in that ceremony, and the beauty and strength and just the wonder of them. They've had some really hard lives, some of them. And I just would use it to ground me when I would do readings. So I had it with me in Iceland, where I was there to do a reading. And I was there to read about the convergence of Icelanders in Manitoba with the local Indigenous. Well, Sharon's family, her nation in Manitoba, was Saulteaux. And they were where the Icelanders all came in 1875. I don't know if anyone's aware of the big volcano in 1875, and it sent a bunch of Icelanders off of the island to Canada. I think some went to the US. So those 200 Icelanders that landed in where her nation was brought smallpox with them, and they actually ended up, almost a whole nation was wiped out. So when Sharon started telling me that, and I realized I'm from Iceland, I'm thinking, also I have Icelandic ancestors. My grandmother was Icelandic. I felt some sense of responsibility. Is there something I should do, some kind of ceremony? So while I'm in Iceland, it occurs to me that, maybe I should bury that cedar umbilical cord there. Because usually the tradition was that when you were born, this is what Sharon taught me, you were gifted your cedar umbilical cord, and it was buried where you were born. And I thought, I'm going to bury this here because it's a connection between Iceland and Canada and Turtle Island for me. It's like this place. It would make a connection, that bridge again between these two places. And so I took that cedar umbilical cord and went to this beach with this crazy wind. And Angela Rawlings, a poet from Canada that was living there, took me there, and we did a very brief ceremony because it was so windy. It was just awful. So I'll read you a poem of my time in Iceland. When I was there, it was surreal. I was really, this sense of time sort of collapsing, feeling like I'm in the past, I'm in the present, I'm back and forth, I'm feeling my ancestors, I'm feeling my nephew Jamie, who had recently passed, was with me. I felt like he was there with me because he loved Game of Thrones, and we went to where that was filmed, and I could just feel him traveling with me, and I could feel my ancestors. And it was very, very interesting. So this is called I'm in Iceland, Darling. They have poetry in the bathroom, uncredited text on blocks of wood, cheeky commentaries on life, some chilling reminders that those who live on shifting ground take their poetry seriously. It's Christmas in the mall, red everywhere, silver adornments for trees and tabletops. I find a coffee shop, listen to the words I do not understand, but they feel familiar. I want to lean in. I do not know if my grandmother spoke these words. I do not know if I've heard this before. All I know is that I'm leaning into her, and everywhere I go, I look for her face. I find her at a party. She is pretty, and I'm glad. Would she have been single too, a photographer, not a farmer with 17 children? This apartment could have been hers, the old furniture, the artwork passed down. My grandmother had nothing to give me but love, and a check for $200 carefully noted in her will. The cost of diaspora long forgotten. There are no accounting methods to track what was lost, language the first to go. The passing down of heirlooms, carvings filled with the stories once held in the hands of the maker. They live on in the wood, tellings of another sort. My grandmother came with nothing, not even a mother. Her father, reluctant to claim her, listed as nanny, not daughter, not sister. Her mother lost, went missing in the country where we take a drive. I look for her, but she is not there. I am here to be a witness to the past. I stand where my ancestors once stood, outdoor governing, a gathering place named Althing. Here the land, the little people honored. We take a short walk. Waters dark, deep, we share a coin, make a wish. The land is filled with silence, and yet it never stops talking to me. Tells me it knows me, that I belong to its past. The pristine snow and the heat of the earth bring geyser remembrances, the gushing of watery words made white-hot by those who do not live brown. My skin erupts, steam escapes from my mouth. I feel the burning, the lava words of my aunties and uncles, the way they slow crawl just below my skin. I am a volcano on an island. I became my own island. I've always been between the wombs of my grandmothers, offered two worlds. One was circles where we lay ourselves open to the warmth of a fire, and the other a burning of another sort. Both sides made strong by storytelling, by connection to the lands of their ancestors. Each a reflection of circumstances, black sand beaches, sharp salt, cold water, peninsulas pointing to Canada, where voyageurs from both sides ventured. Both sides made strong by storytelling and a place called Turtle Island. So living between these two cultures has been very interesting. Thank you. Thank you. And quite a blessing. Like, there's the hard part, but there's the great part. I mean, honestly, Icelanders are fascinating. And since I was there, I've had a very different opinion of some of my aunties and uncles. I understand now that they're not harsh, they're just practical. There's a real need to be practical in Iceland, trust me. It's very harsh circumstances that they live under, and yet so much beauty, and they care so much for the land. So I'll end with our ancestors. This is teaching that I've learned from my Continuum teacher. Anybody here ever heard of Continuum by any chance? Emily Conrad? No? Okay, you might want to look it up. It's really interesting. I do Continuum with my writing teacher, and science, I believe, believes that we come from these first invertebrates. So we once lived in the water, and then we, of course, progressed and came through. So these are our ancestors, and so it is my belief that we can enter the body memory of everything we've been, and that's the Continuum teaching, that we were once birds, we were once fish. So this is a poem about the food court. Sounds very strange when you look at that, but it'll make sense later. The food court at Royal City Centre, and it's called In the Swain, a Memory. We all rode the waves of knowing, not knowing that we are one, that we all rose from the sea, that we are all muscle, memory, many neurons firing inside an evolution, rhetoric incoming, a constant attack, inside, outside, so many veto points. And somehow, in the midst of it all, I delete all my emails. I did. One compassionate act for my body, unintended, and later that day at the mall, a sign, "Do not lean on the glass." I smile, write that down. It could be a poem. Find a table at the food court, open a book, turn to science, a lineage I can trace back to water. The sea squirt waving, all of us clumped together, our rounded bodies firmly fixed to coral, water in, water out. We resonated, left room for each other. Our watery movements, muscle memory, I can feel. Imagine us all swaying in the food court. No one knows what I dream of. No one knows that we could synchronize, move as one, if only we could remember where we came from. Mother's womb, the reminder of our watery beginnings and the days when we were sea squirts swaying, moving as one. I'm going to turn this off so we don't get a ringer. So I thought we could just sway a little bit for a second. Like, let's just sway. Like, honestly, this need to gather is just so innate in us. Like, I was thinking about the food court and how people aren't even talking to each other, but it's like maybe we're remembering being in the sea together, right? I like to think of these things. And I think that, nature often points us towards some of the answers we need for how to live better. Anyway, I really appreciate your kind attention and for having me and for my girl for being here. I love when we do things together. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Vivian. And actually, it's my first time being to come to Creative Morning. It's been an excellent experience this morning, honestly. So my question is do you guys accept any volunteer to the?
That's for you.
Yeah, I would like to help.
I'm sure they can find something for you to do. Most places need more volunteers than they get. This place seems really have a lot of people, though. Maybe because it's fun.
Hi, my name is Andrea, and I was wondering, how do you deal with creative's block? Like, what do you do to get everything out?
Pain, did you say?
Creative's block.
Creative.
Block.
Huh? Oh, creative block. Oh, gee. Well, try not to watch too much news. Although sometimes that makes me write, because I get mad, and then I write something. But I'm tired of writing mad stuff. I don't, really for me, I'm a very thoughtful, slow, contemplative. You wouldn't believe how long I can take to write a poem. So sometimes it takes me a really, really long time. I'll just chew on it. I actually didn't have as much time as I would have liked for this to prepare, or I would have written a poem specifically for Parallel. But I find time alone is important. It's different for all of us. I do pray. I lay tobacco, which is our traditions, but whatever your traditions might be, to ask for assistance from your ancestors, from God, Goddess, the Muse, the universe, the collective consciousness, whatever you want to call it, there's something I find that can help, but only if I can get myself into a calmer place. So I do a lot of what's called writing from the body. So I've been taking this for almost 14 years, where my writing mentor takes us through meditation, guided meditation, based on the teachings of Continuum, the sea squirt. So we do various exercises, breath, and sometimes laying. We used to roll around on the ground when we had a big yoga studio. And then you would write. It's a very different experience once you've really entered your body and then you write. So it's just some way to calm yourself. And so guided meditations, if you don't have a group to do that with, you can listen to one. And I know cost is a problem for some people. I always am conscious of that. So there's YouTube. You can find a beautiful music to listen to. And it's going to be different for you than it is for me. Chanting music is my thing. I love chanting music. I've listened to it for 35 years now, almost on a daily basis. But yeah, And I do guided meditations for others when I'm teaching. So I do find that it's being around people who write, talking with them, reading. There's just so many ways. But the main thing is just stop being so hard on yourself. Because we block ourselves and our creativity by we have that soft gaze that I talked about at the beginning. Soften that gaze, like try to find a way to just relax and let something come. And trust what comes. Like, don't go, no, not that. I tell you, me who argues with the voice all the time is telling you this. Write it down, whether it sounds ridiculous or not. You never know where it might take you. Yeah. Yeah.
Hi. Just briefly, would you mind elaborating on when you were a child and you were experiencing the parallel worlds, just the child's point of view of what those parallel worlds look like?
Well, the first experience of it was, in the forest, and I lived in Goose Bay, Labrador at the time, and it was just a beautiful forest behind our house, and I would go back there, and I think in part this is a coping mechanism as well. I had a lot of trauma in my home. So being in the forest by myself, I had this great imagination. I love my own imagination. I have fun with myself. So I'm back there just feeling strong, and then I would start to feel like as if my ancestors were almost in my body. Like I know how they danced. I know with how they walked in their moccasins. I can feel it through my body. And I didn't know that at the time. I just know what I felt, and now I really believe that was the ancestors. And then later as a teenager, I was like very curious about reality. Like, I didn't think it was necessarily what we think it is. I was like curious, It was the time too, right? Like, what were you reading then? I can't think of the books, but they were books that talked about such things. Yeah. It's a body thing, really, more than a mind thing. Yeah.
Hi, I'm John, and
Hi.
Thank you for sharing. I'm someone who's a settler and is beginning to hear the stories of our First Nations people. I really appreciate your parallel story. But I wonder, as settlers who are hearing, what advice you have for us and how to share effectively, honoring your story and not telling your story for you, but trying to convince some settlers who resist the truth and reconciliation.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for us?
Well, I need the advice myself because I'm a guest, or not uninvited guest here as well, because I'm actually from Manitoba, is our homeland for the Métis. It's complicated, and I don't know that we can convince other people. Like, that's why I like poetry and storytelling and movies and media. Like, we can reach people through story, I believe, more than a lecture. Like, I think people are getting too many lectures, and sure, they might need to know, but if they don't want it, the information, maybe sneak it in a movie, through poetry. I think that poetry is my way, and I'm, of course, partial to it, but I think it hits the person in the heart rather than the head. So I try to use my poetry to share. So you can recommend our books. Shop at Massey Books. I think Iron Dog Books is also an Indigenous bookseller. There's a few of them around. But Massey Books has a ton of Indigenous books. They're in Chinatown. And, buy gifts for people by buying our books. Or even if you can't afford to buy them, go to the library. We get paid for that. Did you know that? We get a nice check once a year from about the library for anything that we've published. So it's not an easy answer to that. I'm still dealing with it myself. I feel like I'm still feeling like there's more I should do here, especially since my great-great-grandfather brought Simon Fraser here. Yeah. Anyone?
Okay. I had a question around how you found poetry, because you wrote your first poetry book when it was 60, right?
I published the first one when I was 61.
Yeah.
Or 60?
So that was like last week.
Yeah. I just turned 70, and I'm shocked. Well, I hadn't planned to write. It's a long story, but I won't give you the whole long story. When I was around 30, I had a very dear friend that was an astrologer, She said I was going to be a writer later in life and that I was going to be quite successful, and I laughed. I mean, I was working at an airline at the time. I didn't even have grade 12. It's like, how do I going to be a writer? Like, what? And so I became ill while I was that enforcement officer at family maintenance, enforcing child support and spousal support. I got sick, of course, and it's a very hard job. And I ended up having to leave work. I was 50. And I thought, what am I going to do now? I can't just do nothing. And so a pamphlet came. I remember it was hot pink from the writer's studio at SFU. And that little voice said, you should apply. I forgot what Hemingini had said all those years ago about being a writer. I didn't remember that till later. And I was accepted. And they put me in poetry. I didn't want poetry. I was going to write my memoir because I'm so special. And I had an interesting story to tell. But yeah, and they put me in poetry, and I argued. And they said, no, we've read your writing, and this is where we think you belong. Trust us. And I'm glad I did. I fell in love with poetry. It wasn't the plan.
Can I just ask you real quick? Sorry, Mark.
Yeah.
What was it about poetry that you fell in love with?
Well, my teacher helped, Miranda Pearson. She's British, and this voice when she reads a poem, oh my God, it's just unfair, the advantage that she has, but she's also, it's just so beautiful. But she's also an amazing poet, and she just started exposing me to poetry that I didn't know existed. You know, poetry to me was like the stuff I don't like, the old stuff. No offense to the old stuff and people who love it, but it just didn't speak to me. I just thought, that's not the way I think or talk, or why would I'm not counting syllables. Like, no way. Although I did have to once for an assignment. I complained in the poem about the... yeah. So, yeah, it just grabbed a hold of me. And the more I started reading poets, like young poets from today, and it just got caught up. I'm still high on it. And writing it is like, oh my God, when you get a poem, especially when you take a painful event and turn it into a beautiful poem, it's like very satisfying. Yeah, thank you.